Hi everybody and welcome to the channel. I am Richard. For a while back, I did an unboxing video on this beautiful miniature game, Fallen Frontiers. I showed you all the content in this box. You can check that video out by clicking up here. But I told you that I was going to get back to you and paint these miniatures as well, and then do a gameplay video. And I am a man of my words. So I have Scale 75's colors here. Scale 75 are the creators behind the game as well. So these colors are specifically made for the miniatures in this box. And in the painting boxes, you get specific painting instructions on how to paint the different miniatures in this box. So here you have the areas over here. You have step 1, step 2, and so on until you have a done mini. And the same thing over here with the riffs, how to start and how to finish. This is quite cool. It also says how to blend it in and how to mix it up. But the first thing we need to do is to prime. I'm using the Army Painter's primer here, but you could really use any primer you want to. The first thing you need to do is to shake this really good. And then we need to go outside. When you prime your miniatures, you should be outside or in a well-ventilated area. Otherwise, you might get a little bit dizzy. And then you need to shake these cans a lot. Approximately 2 minutes to really get the color working. Keep the bottom approximately 20 centimeters away from the miniatures and strive over them in light movements. So you shouldn't cover them in paint. Just swipe over them. So now I have primed my minis and they have dried for a little while. I'm going to start painting the Ares, I think. The Rifts are the kind of alien races and the Ares are the more like humanoid races. And I'm thinking that I'm gonna start with the humanoids. Why not? And I'm actually just gonna follow the inscriptions here on these cards to see how well it works. And it says that step 1 is to just apply a base coat of SC22. Arabic shadow mixed with CS40 Sol yellow on the armor. So now I have primed the miniatures and it's soon time for me to start painting. But before I start painting, I just want to show you some of the things I use while painting. I have a Dungeon and Dragon painting set here from the Army Painters. This is where you get a detail brush, you get a dry brush, and you get the little brusher in the middle that you use the most for the bigger details. And then I have a homemade wet palette. This is just some sandwich papers here. There's just some thin sandwich paper on some wet towels. Just put them in a little plastic container here and put it on. I put my colors on this one here so they won't dry out that fast. And that's really it. Oh well, I know I have this one as well, the little holder here where you put your miniatures on to hold them steady. So instead of holding them in your hands and getting them all messed up by your fingers, you hold your hand down here instead, so you can easily just turn it around and maneuver the little miniature. I primed these with 2 different Army Painters primers. I primed the aliens here, the Rift ones, with a necrotic green because, well, they are green. So later on, I do not have to paint the skin that much. And on the more humanoids here, I took the barbarian color, the barbarian primer, because, well, they're human color in their faces. But they have helmets on, so it really doesn't matter on these ones. But here I'm going to save a lot of time. You see all the skin here? Well, it's already green and it's already coated. So like I said, the first instruction is to take the Sol yellow and mix it up with the Arabic shadow. And the first thing we should do before mixing them together is, again, to shake them really well. And this is the same thing with the primers. They should be shaked a lot because there's a lot of pigment in these colors, and a lot of them are just in the bottom here because, well, they stand like this, so all the pigments end up in the bottom of the little bottles. So you really need to make it a good shake before mixing and painting. Now, when I mix these two colors up together, I do not use my fine brushes because I don't want too much clutter and paint on these. So I'm using just another regular brush to mix these two colors up together. So I'm just going to mix it up here and see what I get. It looks kind of good. A brownish yellow coat here. And this should be on the armor, as I said. So here we have a lot of paint. So let's start to paint some minis. Now this base color here is going to be on the whole miniature, so I really do not need to be that careful. All the little details here we're going to take in a further step. So right now it's just about getting color on the whole mini and just cover it in this yellowish, brownish kind of coat. Now I have painted all the armor of one of the Ares. I have not base coated the weapon though, because I'm gonna do that in a metallic shade later on. But the armor is now coated, and you can of course use a bigger pencil for this step. It doesn't make sense to just have a little detail pencil on this one, because there's no detail. You just cover the whole thing, and in the next step we're going to go in and do some detail work instead. But I'm gonna keep on doing this for all of the Ares. So now I have base colored all of the Ares, and this does not take that long time. If you're putting down too much time on this, you're doing something wrong. To paint all of these, what is this, 12 minutes maybe? Took me about half an hour, so this shouldn't take that long time. It's the details that takes a little bit longer time. And now we're going to move into step number 2. This is where we're going to paint little black spots here in between. And for doing that, we're going to use this one, the African Shadow. So again, shake it real good, but this one should not be mixed up with another color. So here we have, this is the gaps in here, and up here we can see it on this one. I usually have just a little picture just to guide me when I paint, so I don't lose my senses. But let's go for it here. So this is where we need to be a little bit more careful. So now I have done the darker spots here on these little warriors. Looking kind of cool, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the Sol yellow and mix it up with the Tyrene yellow here and make kind of a dry brush just to shine up the armor a little bit and make it a little bit more shiny. So I'm going to take my dry brush here and just dip it lightly in this yellow. Then I'm going to wipe the most of it away on a piece of paper here. And I do like crosses and circles and everything just to get just a little bit of color on it, not that much. Then I'm just going to take it here on the pieces of yellow. And it should hit mostly where the light will hit. So it looks like the light is shining up the armor here. The easiest way is just to put the miniature on the table, kind of just stroke it over them. So when you're doing this highlighting here, the dry brushing, you should really just ask yourself, where do the sunlight hit yourself? And usually on the head, right? Shoulders, and if there's a leg sticking out here. So it's really just to go from the top and down and just stroke it along the edges. Because it's really the edges that you want to stick out the most here. So now I'm gonna paint all the metal pieces here, the little pieces that I think should be metal color, and I'm actually going to use the machine gun metal here from Army Painter. So let's check that one out. Again, shake it real good. We have the little belt buckle here, for example. I think that should be metal. We have the gun as well, and I'm gonna paint the metal. I'm gonna paint the whole thing metal first, and then I'm gonna paint little black details on it later on. Thinking also the knee pads here should be metal. Would be quite cool, right? And the ones here on the shoes should be metal as well. I mean, the whole thing is metal, but metal color. Look at that. What do you mean? Gonna do that on the rest as well. So now I have base colored and highlighted and done some cool little metal pieces here on them. I've also colored the hair on the ones that had hair. Most of them just had helmets. So I have some details left on these ones, the eyes for example, but I'm gonna wait for that because I want to wash them first, and the wash will bring down the details a little bit. So if you have a color that you feel like you're really satisfied with, you might want to just tone it up a little bit because the wash will bring it down. But let's start washing them. As washes, I'm using dark tone here from the Army Painter. I'm using this one because it will make them look a little bit dirty. I'm thinking that if they have been out in war fighting for a long time, they're probably a bit dirty, right? These ones shouldn't be shaken that much. You should just shake them around just a little bit gentle here, because you don't want too many bubbles in them. And what I do here is I just take the little miniature and then I really just soak it in the wash, starting from the top down. And I want to make sure that the wash get into every little nook and cranny here that I can find on this miniature. And if there's any pieces where I feel like it soaks up too much, I just dry off the brush a little bit and use it to just carefully just take away where I feel like it's too much of a wash. And why should you wash? Well, washes is kind of like the auto tune for miniature painters. You use it to make shading, the colors will become a little bit more realistic as well. So this one, it does a lot. Like I said, if you have details like eyes or something, you should wait to after the wash to paint them on, because it's going to take away a lot of that. Also, it will make the colors on them look a little bit more dirty and old. So if you have a really bright color, make sure to tone it up a little bit. But the washes are really great, especially if you just want to get done fast and just want to get tabletop ready. This is perfect. You don't want to sit down and spend hours and hours on shading, especially if you don't really know what you're doing. It just takes a lot of time. So here I feel like I got a little bit too much. I'll just stick the pencil in here and let the pencil just soak it up. There we go. Otherwise, this one is done now. It does not take that long time. This should dry for 48 hours. So just put it there and let just the washes run down. So there I am done with the wash, and as you can see, they look quite different from what they did before. This is going to look a bit dangerous when you do it for the first time. You're going to get scared that you have destroyed your miniature. You have not. Let them dry for 48 hours and they will look really, really awesome. I know the first time I did it, it looked really, really scary, but you have not destroyed them, trust me. You have enhanced them a lot. So that was the Ares. That was 10 miniatures. I've done 10 miniatures in about 2.5 hours. So it's not that bad, but there's not that much details on these ones, and they're pretty easy to paint. These ones are really just get paint on them and get them tabletop ready. But it's getting late here in Sweden, so I'm gonna call it quits for tonight and come back tomorrow to start painting the riffs. So it's a new evening and it's time to do another paint job. So yesterday I did all of the areas actually. I primed them, base coated them, colored them and so on. You've seen the video, so you know what I've done. And they have dried overnight and they are starting to look quite awesome actually. They're going to dry just a little bit more to really get the wash to be where it's supposed to be and soak in. But it looks really cool. I'm gonna show close-ups on them later. So I have the rifts now. I'm gonna paint them today. But if you remember with the areas yesterday, I base coated them completely in one color. And I'm not going to do this with these ones because if you remember, I used the primer from Army Painter with the skin color in them. And there's a lot of skin on these fellows right here. And I want to keep the color for the skin on these ones. Because once I do the washes on them, the skin is going to look really cool and alien. So I'm going to paint the pants and I'm going to paint the upper body armor here and the face mask. Some of them have some masks on themselves. I'm going to paint them. And I'm going to use the first step here on the instructions. Again, just going to follow the instructions completely here on this one. So I'm going to mix up the Caribbean blue and the boreal green here. The ones looking like this. So I'm going to mix them up, and first, you know what to do. Shaky, shaky. I'm going to start by just mixing up some of it here in the middle. I'm going to paint quite a lot of miniatures using this color, so I use quite a lot of color. I probably took a little bit too much here, but never mind. There we go, this looks quite good. A little bit more darker maybe. There we go, quite happy with this one. And I'm going to use the medium-sized brush for this one for most of the miniature here. And again, not use too much color here. And just start to apply it. And when I'm doing this, when I'm not going to base the entire miniature in one go, I start by just applying the bottom layer first, and then I move up until up on the top layers later. So I'm gonna start with this color here, and just like I did yesterday, I do this color completely on all of the miniatures, and when I have completed all of this color, I move on to the next color, so I don't have to go back and forth between different colors. So don't paint one miniature in just a little green and then go to black and it's back and forth. Do one color on all of the minis, and then you can go back and do another color. In that way you don't have to clean your brush that much, you don't have to stop and pour up new paint. The old paint will dry up, it will just give you a lot more hassle. So do one color on all the miniatures, then go back and do another color on all the miniatures, and so on. So now I'm just going to keep on painting here. As you see, it's quite good color here. It's good coverage, it covers up pretty good. So when you paint these small edges here, really you should just let the brush do its job. Just put it on the edge and then just draw carefully alongside the edges. It's not that hard. I mean, it looks quite difficult, but it's really not. As long as you're just not in too much of a hurry, it's really okay. And here you can see I cover all of these small details here. That's because I'm gonna go back later and put some metal paint on them later, once this has dried out. I'm just gonna try to even out the color here on the back. Take the little details in here in the horn corners. There we go. I've painted all the green on this one, or greenish on this one. A little bit more here. And then just take a quick look around so you haven't missed any details. Here, for example, on the side. I missed in here. There we go. So now I'm done with this color on this one. I'm gonna move on to the next miniature and do the same. So now I have base coated all of the rifts here. And this took me about an hour. This wasn't that hard. And I have done some mistakes on these ones. I have accidentally painted the skin back here. You can see I have got his arm here. So that's the end of the world, right? No, it's not. You can always go back and correct things. I understand that it's a pain in the posterior if you do some misses and you need to go back and correct them, because it takes time and energy, but you can always go back and correct. And the skin color on these ones, I mean, I used the Army Painter's primer on them, but the Army Painter have a color that matches up 100% with this primer. So for now I am done with this color, and I'm gonna move on to the black here. I'm thinking I'm gonna paint the boots blacks, the weapons and their little bags and belt buckles and everything. So I'm gonna paint that black, and again I'm gonna do the black on all of these ones, and then I'm gonna move on to the next color again. What I'm gonna do here when I paint the black is that I'm gonna start from the bottom with the boots and then just work my way up. This doesn't look like it has much details here either, so let's just get started. So now I have painted the black details on all these little fellers here. And while doing this, I noticed that, well, I have missed a few spots. When they should have been green, I have accidentally forgotten or missed it out. And that happens. When you do these many small miniatures at once, it's going to happen. And it's really not a problem. All I have to do is just mix up a little bit more of the same color, go over the little miniatures, and just fill in the gaps that I have missed. So now I have painted all the little green spots that I have missed, and it's time for me to just quickly go over the skin and see that I haven't missed anything here. Remember I said that Army Painter has a perfect cover up for their primers? Well, this is it. So I'm just going to take a quick look at them and see if there's any spots I missed, which there are. And after I have done that, I'm going to paint some of the metal details. For example, his sword here, or little protection things here. I'm going to turn them into metal just to make it pop out a little bit more. This skin color here really covers up the little fellas really good. There was a green spot right here, but it is completely gone now. I don't know, the camera can't catch it. There, it is completely gone. It's a really good match. And the colors here from scale 75 has also worked quite nicely. They cover up the miniatures quite well, and it looks quite good. Almost gives the mini like a camouflage kind of color, but not really camouflage, you know. I mean, it looks quite well. So what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna wash these as well. And I'm not going to use the same wash as I did on the other ones, because I think that the skin tone here will be too darkened down by that wash. So I'm actually going to wash them with strong tone instead. On the other ones I use the dark tone, but I think that these ones will become too dark, so I'm going to use the strong tone instead on these little alien pieces. And again, I don't shake this too much, I just like stir it around a little bit. Don't want the bubbles again. And just like I did on the other miniatures, I'm gonna apply the wash from the head and then down on the mini and really just let it run down by itself. I'm going to take my little wash brush here. I do not use the same brush for painting minis as I do as the wash. I take another brush for that one. And I take the little miniature here and I put on some wash and I just go from the top and down. And again here, you can't be too afraid of really just swapping everything on. The whole mini should get this wash on itself. Again, it's gonna look scary. If you're first time doing this, it's going to look scary, but it's going to be just fine in the end, I promise you. It's actually going to look quite good. And again, this saves you a lot of time. I mean, I have like 15 miniatures approximately here to do this, but this will take me like 20 minutes. If I should sit down and manually by hand shade all these miniatures, it would take me hours, and I just do not have that patience. I mean, if I was going to paint one masterpiece mini, I would probably do that, but not for this. I just want this to be on the table. The pieces where it gets too much, just take the brush in there and just let the brush soak it up again. You don't want too much, especially in pieces like here, when you have a little, it's almost like a little pool catching all the shade. You don't want all the wash, you don't want that. So you just take the brush, wipe off the brush on the paper, and let it soak up where it gets too much. One down. So that was the last one of these ones washed and ready, and now these ones are going to dry for 48 hours as well. This should not take you that long time. I mean, I did all of these and there's like 15, 16 of them, and it took me about 20 minutes. So this one, it should not take you that long time. And I want to say that I am not a professional painter or anything like that. I mean, I really do not paint at all if it's not miniatures, and I haven't been painting miniatures for that long either. I just want to show you that you can do this as well quite easy. So now these ones are gonna dry, and they're gonna dry for 48 hours like I told you. So now I'm gonna go back to these fellas right here, and I'm gonna paint their little eyes here, and they are quite easy. It's just gonna be red eyes on these ones. As you can see on these ones, they don't really have eyes, they have like a helmet. Some of them, there's two of them, there's humans without a helmet, and they have proper eyes. But these ones do not. So they are not that hard to actually paint. But I'm going to use my small detail brush here. Dab some red on it. I have some red on the pencil now. And just carefully put in some red here. I really just want a little sense of red, so not too much in there. And I'm gonna do this on the rest of them. So now the hard parts comes. These ones who actually have eyes. I usually take a little bit of white on the pencil first, and I start with the white. And I go in really careful and really just dab on a little bit of color in there. And on the other side as well. Really careful. And there shouldn't be that much paint on this, just a little bit of paint. And then I take the color that I want, usually black. And again, just a tiny amount of paint on them. And then I just dot in there really careful. There we go. We got some eyes on him. Tip here is to really have one of these, because this one you can put down on the table and have a firm, steady hold on it. If I should just hold this in my hand, I would shake too much. But this one I can put it down on the table, and then I use my other hand to hold it down and pinpoint where I'm supposed to paint. Eyes are not easy to do. Let's just say it like that. It's no secret. It's really hard, and I had a lot of practice before doing this. But if you do the white first and then dot it with a black in the middle, and if you also have some skin color to just cover up around the eye where you're going to mess up the white, then it's not that hard, but it's still pretty hard and it takes a lot of practice. So if you do not want to do eyes, well, skip the eyes, but at least give them eyebrows, because eyebrows are a big part of humans' face. If you take away the eyebrows on any human, well, we look kind of weird. The last thing I have to do on these bad boys right here is really just to paint the base, and that is not that difficult. You really just take a bigger size brush and then you just push the gray or black or whatever you want, brown, around the base, around the feet. And around the feet you can really just drag the brush alongside the base. When painting bases, I do not use the handle. I simply just put them on the table on a little piece of paper here, a sandwich paper, so I can easily just move it around. Take just some the paint I want on my brush, simply just paint around the figure on the base, and then I can simply move the paper around instead of touching the miniature and the base, because eventually I won't be able to touch the base here with my fingers without making a mark. So I really want to be able to turn the miniature without touching it. And then a little sandwich paper here is just perfect. We are almost done, people. We have primed them, we have base coated them, we have put some details on them, we have painted the bases, and they are practically done. You could just leave them like this and just be happy, but if you really want these ones to last for a long time, you should, at least I think so, put some varnish on them. What this varnish will do is pretty much give the little miniatures a shield that will make them last for a long time. Because you're probably going to put them down in boxes, you're going to use them with sweaty hands, they might get sticky if you don't have the varnish on them, and this will just give them that protective layer that will make sure that they will keep these colors for a long time. And you pretty much put on the varnish the same way you put on the primer. You spray over a couple of layers and do not just spray one mini really hard. Just put some easy layers over them, and it should also be done in a well ventilated area, preferably outside. And it shouldn't be too hot, it shouldn't be too cold. And before we start spraying the layer, we should of course shake it again. So there you have it, people. That was how to paint Fallen Frontiers, a miniature game from scale 75. I have used a combination between Army Painter's paint here, but mostly I have used scale 75's own paint to paint these miniatures. Now, I want to say again, I am not a professional. I am not schooled by anyone to do this. I have simply Googled around a lot of tricks and tips on how to get miniatures looking pretty okay. If you want to do it in any other way, well, do it in any other way. If I did some mistakes, please tell me, because I am still learning as well. I mainly wanted to show you that you, as an amateur, can do this as well. I get so many comments and mails from people saying that they do not dare to paint their miniatures because they're afraid that it might look bad. Well, if I can do it, you can do it. Believe me, I have clumsy finger, I can barely see colors, and I have painted 0 in my life. I am a complete noob, and it still looks okay, by me at least. And the colors that I have used here is just an example. You can use any colors you want to. If you want to paint them all purple, well, go ahead and paint them purple. Do it your way, as long as you're happy. That's the thing that matters. Now, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Throw in a comment there what you thought about the miniature, what do you think about the game. Does it look cool? I am going to do a video where I show how this game is played as well. It's gonna take some time because the rulebook is quite thick, but we are getting there, people. If you like my channel and if you want to support what I'm doing, please hit the subscribe button and follow me. It gives me a smile on my lips every time I get a new subscriber. And until next time, people, please take care of each other and keep on spreading that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace out.